the entire agri-food sector bears the brunt of the climate crisis.
Pour parler d'agriculture et d'Europe à la jeunesse.
Proteste der Landwirte zeigen, wie wichtig der stratégische Dialog ist.
La PAC, c'est plus du tiers du budget total de l'Union européenne.
We have to find a new consensus on the future of agriculture.
Welcome to episode 58 of Food for Europe. Since July 1st of this year, Denmark has been holding the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. Denmark's ambitious plan for the presidency includes wrapping up negotiations on the agricultural simplification package to make life easier for farmers, as well as promoting innovation, ensuring sustainability and competitiveness in the sector. But the big story over the next few years around Danish farming will be the implementation of the Green Tripartite agreement, Denmark's aggressive plan to reduce carbon emissions. Of course, one size does not fit all in agriculture, but what can we take from the Danish playbook while Denmark holds the presidency? We begin with Danish farmer Christian Orthmann Andersen. It's a rainy day when we meet Christian at his chicken barn in the little village of Hayden on the island of Funen, about 2 hours west of Copenhagen.
Well, it's a big room. There's 1,500 square meters inside here, and it's a room for making chickens, for poultry. So right now it's empty and it's in wash, so it's quite dirty in here because this Sunday they all went to the place where they need to be slaughtered.
But poultry isn't the only thing that Christian produces.
I planted 5 hectares of black currants in the autumn. The money in the chickens are a little better than in the black currants, and it takes some time for the black currants to be ready. So in the meantime, I can earn a little bit of money on the chickens.
While Christian comes from a farming background, this is his first year in business.
It's really nice to work, stand up every day, to go to the chickens and go to the fields and check up on everything. It's also hard. There's a lot of decisions, and there's a lot of decisions you didn't know you have to make before you started. You knew that you need feed for your chickens and all that. But when to buy it, that's a big part of actually having a great farm and run a great business, because it does matter what time of year you buy your feed.
On average, Danish farmers earn more than their European counterparts, but for Christian, it's not that straightforward.
Well, it's a hard statement to agree on. I'm not too sure if we earn that much more. We're also quite specialist here in Denmark. Like, I have chickens, but I don't also have like pigs or cows and stuff like that. So I'm only in chickens and black currants. I know how to trim everything in my company. So I think that's maybe a part of the reason we are really specialist in what we do. Also, here in Denmark, we worked a lot in knowing where the food is coming from. So, like milk, we kind of know exactly this liter of milk comes from this farmer. And that's a part of the Danish success on average, I think.
We'll come back to Christian a little later. Joining the conversation now is Neda Skakelja, head of unit for the Nordic and Baltic member states, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, at the European Commission's Directorate-General for Agriculture and Rural Development. Neda, welcome to Food for Europe.
Thanks very much for inviting me.
Let's begin with the big picture. Can you give us an overview of Danish farming? How has it evolved and what do they do well in Denmark?
Denmark is actually, looking back, developed its agriculture in a very specific and very targeted way. Over the years, they have been quite focused on primarily the pork production and then also the dairy production in itself. In Denmark, what we see is that the primary sector actually accounts for 1.5% of the Danish gross value added, which maybe puts it in a different situation compared to other member states. The Danish farming and the Danish farming policy and overall the targets that they have focuses quite a lot on intensive research and innovation.
One of the priorities of the Danish presidency of the Council of the EU is the agricultural simplification package. This is obviously a priority for DG Agri also. What can you tell us about that?
The Danish presidency has put a very ambitious plan, which for us is highly welcomed. It is important that the simplification is in place as soon as possible. If it can be in place for the farmers and the administration starting from 2026, that is what actually makes the difference. And we look forward to working with the Danish presidency and the co-legislators of the Council and the Parliament as well in reaching the agreement.
Denmark will be pushing green initiatives during its presidency. The Danes have an ambitious national plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, part of which will be the introduction of a carbon tax on emissions from livestock in 2030. What do you think about that model?
I think that we highly welcome what the Danes are doing, but each and every member state should be then asked to see what works best. We, by all means, welcome what the Danes are proposing, and we welcome also the tripartite agreement that has been agreed recently. I see already that Denmark is putting quite a lot of effort into trying to find a way to finance the tripartite agreement both nationally and through the CAP strategic plan that is currently in force with the amendments and the possibilities.
Neda, thank you for that overview. We'll come back to Neda later in the programme. Denmark is one of the most progressive countries in the world when it comes to reducing greenhouse gases. Part of its plan to reduce emissions is the Green Tripartite Agreement, which covers agriculture. Joining us now is Niels Peter Nørring, Climate Director for the Danish Agriculture and Food Council. Niels, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what's in the Green Tripartite Agreement?
It's an agreement between the government, the green NGO, and agriculture. And there's two major things. One of the things is that we are introducing in Denmark, as the first country in the world, tax on greenhouse gases from agriculture. Second, that's a big transition of agricultural land to nature and forest. 15% of the agricultural land will be transferred to nature or forest in the next 20 years.
How were you able to secure an agreement with the farming industry on a CO2 tax?
The parliament and the government had already decided that there should be a tax on agricultural emissions. Why we could agree on it in a big compromise, it was that the tax will only apply to emissions from livestock, the emissions from the barns and the emissions from manure storage.
And what can farmers do to avoid paying the tax?
There will be a fixed base deduction of 60%. This means that the most climate effective farmers, they can avoid paying a tax. They have to invest, they have to use the newest technology, they have to use the right feeding, but they can avoid paying a tax if they do so. And the last thing I want to mention here is that the revenue for the farmers who won't avoid paying a tax will be returned to the agricultural sector to support the green transition on the farms.
I want to bring Christian back into the conversation. We asked him earlier what he was hearing from other farmers about the agreement.
What I hear from others is that they are kind of ready for this, but they are also a little bit nervous because the deal is not ended yet. Carbon tax is a big part of it. How are we going to pay it? How are we making sure that my farm business is paying the right amount in carbon tax? Not too much, not too little. How are we going to calculate that? And all these deals have to be made before we are completed with this big deal.
So Niels, let me put that question to you. How do you measure emissions?
We are not going to go out and measure the precise emissions. It's not possible. So we're going to have a big system with all the different kind of animals, all the different kind of barns, all the different kinds of technology in the barns, and all the different kinds of handling the manure and storage of the manure, and even are we going to send the manure to biogas, or are we keeping it in the storage at the farm? And also looking at the feed, are we going to use feed additives, or are we not going to use feed additives? And which kind of feed are we going to use? So all these elements is going to be put into a calculation, accounting system.
Last point on this, it's not all one-way traffic. The government also has work to do.
So we have 4.5 years to invest, and the government have 4.5 years to get a lot of new technologies on the market. And from now on and until 2030, they have to build up a very, very big system, a tax accounting system, emission accounting system, so they can calculate the tax.
Denmark also takes on the presidency of the Council at a time when competitiveness and simplification seem to be the priorities of the EU. But does this come at the expense of forward-looking green initiatives? I asked Neda and Niels about this and if we were dropping the ball on these initiatives.
I think that the Commission or the overall way that we are going has not dropped the ball. And I think that we are trying to get the member states to do as much as can be done. I would also say that agriculture as such is important element and needs to contribute to whatever and however we get to the final goal. And there, I think that, to get back to Denmark, they are also trying to make that effort and to contribute as much as possible.
It is absolutely essential to have a strong common agriculture policy that supports the green transition, where we continue to produce for globally a growing population, and in Europe, securing food supply. So we have to have focus on both. We cannot just have focus on competition or have focus on green transition, but we have to look at both and find the best way of producing with fewest impact on nature, on environment and climate.
Thank you both for that insight. In 10 years' time, more than half the farmers in the EU will have retired, making the next generation all the more important. Generational renewal is a topic we've covered before. It's a priority not just for the Danish presidency, but for DG Agri too. We began with Christian, the first-year farmer, so it's fitting that we end with him as we look towards what the future holds. Christian is not just a farmer. He's also the chairman of LandboUngdom, which translates as Rural Youth. It's an organisation that brings people together in the countryside.
Well, what we do is we are a national organisation that make activities for young people living in the countryside. So we want to make the countryside a better place to live for young people. And we do that through every kind of thing, like we go bowling and we go visit farms and other companies. So we make everything to make it a better place here in the countryside. That's what we do in LandboUngdom.
There seems to be no shortage of people going to agricultural college in Denmark.
I think it's quite unique here in Denmark because we see in all the agriculture colleges, they're pretty full. There's a lot of young people starting there now. I think it's really nice because I think this is the most important job you can have in the whole world.
What are the benefits of going to agricultural college?
The most important was all the stuff we learn about the crops, but also strategy and economics. That's a big part of going to agriculture college here in Denmark. We learn a lot about economics when we go to college, and I think that's quite important when you have your own farm and your own company.
How optimistic are you about the future of Danish farming?
I think that the future for Danish farming is quite bright. I think now we have an agreement. We want Danish farmers to have a great opportunities to earn monies. So I think Danish farming is in a good place.
Christian, thank you so much for joining us. Before we end the program, I put the same question to Niels.
What I envision is an agricultural sector producing high-quality products to a growing population in a more sustainable way. A very strong agricultural sector in Denmark in the future, where farmers in Europe, farmers outside would say, okay, we could learn something, and we will do it. So, because when we do something in Denmark, it helps on the nature, it helps on the environment, but in the climate area, we are such a small country with such a small agriculture, so it doesn't make sense doing anything in Denmark. But if somebody outside Denmark, some of the big nations are following, then we are making a big difference. And that's what we want. We want to make a big difference and continue to have a strong agriculture in the future.
Niels, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all our other guests for their contributions to this episode also. That's all we have time for. In the meantime, feel free to listen again to previous episodes available on all podcast platforms. See you soon, and as always, take good care of yourself.
The entire agri-food sector bears the brunt of the climate crisis.
Pour parler d'agriculture et d'Europe à la jeunesse.
Proteste der Landwirte zeigen, wie wichtig der stratégische Dialog ist.
La PAC, c'est plus du tiers du budget total de l'Union européenne.
We have to find a new consensus on the future of agriculture.